Welcome back to Giants Mania. Today I'll be answering some community page or mailbag questions from you guys. I always enjoy doing this and interacting with you guys, so thank you to those who ask questions. I feel like we have a good amount, so we're not going to waste any time here. Let's just get into it, but leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. The first question is from Tristan. Who was your least favorite signing this offseason, and who do you think was the most underrated signing of this offseason for the Giants? So, you guys know how I feel about running backs and overpaying for them and paying too much money for them. So my least favorite, of course, is Devontae Booker, and it hurt a lot more because they made that like the first night of free agency. I think that was like their first signing, then it was John Ross right after. But to have that be their first signing, it stung a bit more. And Devontae Booker, I mean, look, if he was like someone that I really liked as a running back, maybe I can get on board with it. But Devontae Booker to me is just a guy. He's 28 years old. He's been in the league for like 5 years now. Never impressed too much. He's just average basically. Giants paid him 2 years, $5.5 million, a $2.5 million cap hit. You really can't save much money this year if it doesn't work out. Next year, it's a $1 million cap hit, so you can save $2 million. But still, to have a dead cap hit for a backup running back, assuming he does not work out this year, is not what you want to see. So I was not a big fan of that one, but I will say, to be optimistic, the rest of the Giants free agency was an A plus to me. I think just if you include all of them, though, I give it an A because Booker's was not my favorite, but I give the rest of it an A plus. Now, my most underrated signing for the Giants, I'd probably say, is either Danny Shelton, a late signing from Detroit. He was with New England, Cleveland, or I would say Ifeadi Odenigbo. I love that guy as well. Very strong. Both guys are very strong. I mean, you add some talent and depth to your defensive line. I do think Danny Shelton's going to play more because the Giants don't really have a nose tackle right now. Of course, with Dalvin Tomlinson leaving, you have Austin Johnson. You do have right now Danny Shelton basically on the depth chart. So I do think Danny Shelton will play a good amount next year, assuming they don't draft like a Christian Barmore in round one or something like that. But I do think Ifeadi Odenigbo, when he gets in there as a rotational pass rusher, will be a good player. He does have a chance to start. I mean, let's say that Lorenzo Carter does not bounce back right away from his injury. Oshane Ximines, same thing. Those are not Joe Judge guys, and I think Joe Judge has majority of say of who's going to play on the field, of course. So if he's not really a fan of those guys, I could see Ifeadi Odenigbo being a week one starter, so I'm not going to rule him out as well. But those are my two favorite. Leave in the comments for you guys who are your favorite or your least favorite and your most underrated signings in the comments as well. Next question from Football Talk with Benny. What should we do about Julian Love with all the safeties and corners on this team? Is there still a role for him? I hope we can find one because I was excited about him when he was drafted. I agree with you. I was excited as well. So I do think he's entering year 3 now, so he should have 2 more years left on his deal. Honestly, I don't think the Giants should do anything about him. I mean, honestly, he's probably going to be the backup cornerback to Adoree Jackson and James Bradbury because right now the Giants do have enough safeties between Xavier McKinney, Jabril Peppers, Logan Ryan. He's probably the 4th guy in that rotation. But for the corners right now, maybe it's Isaac Yiadom over him, but the Giants kind of tried that last year. I know Yiadom took like a pay cut. He'll be back next year if he makes a team. But for Julian Love, he might right now be the cornerback number 4 technically if you include Darnay Holmes, but cornerback 3 on the outside. So I still like having Julian Love on that rookie deal, a cheap guy who's versatile, can play everywhere in the secondary. And I'm aware that Julian Love will never be an all-pro player. That was not my expectation when we drafted him, but I think he's a very solid player, a cornerback 2/3 type of guy, a solid 4th-round pick, I believe he was. So, yeah, I'm fine keeping him as an outside corner for depth. You have him 2 more years on a cheap contract. Let him play it out. I feel like he's a good locker room guy. I was lucky enough to talk to him last year on a podcast. That was really cool. So shout out to Fireside Giants for that one. But he's an awesome guy. So I do hope they keep him around for a while. I do think he'll play out the next 2 years. I don't see him going anywhere. And I do think for depth reasons and, of course, Adoree Jackson with his injury history, it's probably the best idea just to keep him there as an outside corner. Next question from, I think this is Ian. I'm pretty sure EAAN. Hopefully I got that one right. But with the additions of our free agent signings, what do you think our record will be based on the teams we play next season? So yeah, we don't know exactly like what weeks we're playing these teams and what times, but we do know the opponents. So I'll look at it real quick. So home games next year, I'll go with the wins here. So Atlanta, they can win that. Carolina at home, they can win that. Raiders at home, they can win that. Denver at home, they can win that. The Rams, I'm not giving them that win right now. The Cowboys, I'll give them that. I say we split with Dallas. We can beat the Eagles at home. Hopefully Washington at home. So I'm at 7 wins already for the home games, but the road schedule is tough. I'm looking at it right now. KC, probably not. Chargers, we'll see. I got to see what they do in the draft first, but, they're probably going to be a tough team next year. Buccaneers, no. The Saints, I don't know what to think about the Saints. The Giants never play well in New Orleans, at least recently. So, I mean, that was during the Drew Brees era. So, I mean, I don't know what to expect, but I won't give them the win yet. Miami, don't know what to expect. I have no idea what Tua Tagovailoa is right now in year two. We'll find out, but that is a very good roster. Chicago, we can beat them. I feel like the Giants, I almost said the Yankees, the Giants can hang around with Chicago. They beat them in 2018, I believe. They lost in back-to-back in 2019 and 2020, I think, but they were close games, so I will say they could beat Chicago. Then I gave them the win against the Cowboys last time, so I'll give them the loss here. The Eagles, I don't think we're sweeping the Eagles. That just never happens for the Giants, so we'll stay at 8. And then Washington, we can sweep them. 9-7. I think 9-7 is pretty possible. I mean, I do want to see like how the draft goes and what exactly the schedule looks like. So I will do another schedule prediction video. Humble brag, I got 14 out of 16 games right last year, which is like, I don't know how I did it, but it's probably some dumb luck for me right there. But I will have a video, but yeah, I mean the away schedule is not what you want to see. It's some tough teams, of course. But the home schedule, if the Giants are a good home team next year, then they can probably get themselves at least 6 wins at home by next year. So yeah, I think it's very possible to at least go over 500 next year. Next question, well, not actually a question, but Elena, no question, just here to say hi, Mikey TN, you are the best. I think you are the best, Elena, but we always agree to disagree on that one, so that's all I got to say for that one. But Shadow Boy, do you think Gettleman is loading up on the offense for Jones because he knows if he admits that he is not our franchise quarterback, he will be fired, so he has no problem backloading a lot of the contracts? I think the backloading part has more to do with the pandemic and the low salary cap than Gettleman trying to save his job, because the Giants really had to, like, I think, what's his name? Galladay's cap is like $5 million this year, and like Adoree Jackson's, I think, might be a bit low this year. Someone else has a low cap hit. Oh, Leonard Williams. Leonard Williams is like $11 million this year or something. So the Giants do have some low cap hits this year and kind of like, move their money around. But I think most teams are hoping, based on like the new TV deal and like hopefully fans coming into the stadium next year, that the salary cap will rise up once again. So hopefully it's not much of a problem next year. But I don't really blame Gettleman for what he did this offseason, because you're now in year 3 of your quarterback on a rookie contract, and I think we all know about how important it is to try and win with that window of your quarterback being on a rookie contract. So Gettleman kind of played that off in his press conference and started talking about computers or something like that. But I think it's a real thing. I mean, you talk about some of the best teams in the league the last few years. A lot of them have cheap contracts for quarterbacks or rookie contracts for quarterbacks. So the Giants really did the right thing here. You eventually have to go all in. Like, if you think you have a franchise quarterback, and by the way, the Giants talk about Daniel Jones, whether it's Gettleman, whether it's John Mayer, whether it's Joe Judge, the way they talk about Daniel Jones, they think he's a franchise quarterback. So if you think that, you go all in with this guy and try to give him a Super Bowl contending team. And the Giants pretty much have done that, I guess. I mean, they still have a lot of holes on the offensive line, and they don't really have an alpha pass rusher, but they're at least giving him a competent team. I'm still not a fan of having Jason Garrett around, but still, I think the Giants, from a roster standpoint, have put a really good defense out there for them. The Giants might have a top 10 to top 5 defense next year, hopefully. So in terms of offense, signing Kenny Galladay, probably the biggest signing for this team in a lot of years. So I'm very happy about that one. But yeah, I don't really think it's just Gettleman trying to save his job. I get what you're saying, but I think it has more to do with the pandemic and all that, the salary cap being low. So I'm not going to sit here and blame Gettleman for any of that stuff. From Nate the Great 722, do we take the best player available at number 11 or trade down? And if we do trade down, who would you want to pick? So I would think the Giants, I mean, it's funny. I did like a mock draft for the first time the other day, and the way the board fell, it was very weird. Like, everyone that I wanted was gone, from like Waddle, Slater, like every possible person I wanted. I think Devontae Smith was even gone. The best player available was Micah Parsons, and I think that would be a great pick at 11, but I don't know about his issues, like with not off-field issues, but like the whole 2019 or 2018 thing at Penn State with the whole scandal or whatever it was. I don't know what to think about that. I don't really have any behind-the-scenes information about that, but if the board fell that way, the way I was doing my mock draft, I probably would have traded back personally. I don't think the Giants will trade back in this draft. I mean, I think here's my thing about this. If the Giants are going to draft based on position, which I think is stupid, but if they want to draft based on position and they have their eyes set on an outside linebacker or edge rusher, then I think it's smart to trade back. Because when the Giants are picking, I'm assuming that just about every pass rusher is still going to be on the board. And really, there's like a lot of guys are in that same area. Like guys like Jalen Phillips, Jason Owe, Kwity Paye, Azeez Ojulari, guys like that are just all kind of like the same. They're in like this bunch. And like, if you're the Giants, like, you don't have to take the first guy. Maybe they have a strong feeling about one guy, but like, honestly, I don't see much of a huge difference between those guys. Like, the way I would rank those guys is Phillips 1, Ojulari 2, Kwity Paye 3. I'm probably forgetting someone else, but Owe 4. I'm definitely Gregor Rousseau. I'm not really a Rousseau guy. Probably put him 5th on that list, but maybe 4th. But still, if the Giants are deciding to go outside linebacker, then maybe it makes sense to trade down. But I do think best player available is probably the way to go here. I still don't know who I want to draft. I think there's a lot of guys that I'm a big fan of course, and I still don't know exactly what player I want. But I will put it this way. It's going to be hard for the Giants to have me upset with their first round pick. I will put it that way. There's a lot of good players there. So, whether it's Micah Parsons, whether it's Jalen Waddle, Rashawn Slater, I can live with it. I'll be happy with probably whoever they pick. I hope Gettleman doesn't pull another defensive lineman thing and take Christian Barmore. I think Barmore is going to be a good player, but just don't take him 11th overall with this roster, please. But yeah, I think best player available is probably the most likely thing we'll see from the Giants. Next I think it's Karan. I grew up with the Karan. I think he spells it the same way, so I'll go with that. But how much do you believe in Matt Parrott at right tackle? And do you see inside linebacker as a need besides Blake? Or do you think Crowder and Ragland is enough besides Blake? All right, so for the second part, I will go with, I think the Giants could use some more inside linebacker help. You guys know I like Tay Crowder. I mean, I didn't know who he was last year at this time, but after the Giants drafted him and I watched him, I was like, oh, that guy's pretty good. So Tay Crowder, I'm a fan of. I just think the Giants can do better than him. And for Reggie Ragland, solid tackler, but he doesn't really do much else. Not the most athletic guy, not the best in coverage. So, yeah, the Giants can definitely use an improvement there. If, the Giants want to take Micah Parsons, if they take Jabril Cox in round 2, if they trade back and take Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I'm totally fine with that. So, yeah, I think the Giants can use an upgrade there, but I don't see inside linebacker as a top need for this team right now. But, having Blake Martinez helps a lot. He plays in every game. He's there all the time. He makes plays, always around the ball. So, having a good tackler there and a solid player definitely does a lot for you. So having Blake Martinez will now put them in a position to not have to reach and take an inside linebacker. But, yeah, I wouldn't reach for one in the draft, but if the Giants are a big fan of one of those guys I just listed, then, yeah, I think they can definitely upgrade there for sure. And for Matt Parrott, I like Matt Parrott. He was one of my favorite guys, sleepers in a way before the draft last year. I was very happy when the Giants took him. So, very long arms. I don't see him being a guard, just doesn't have that guard body type. I see him being a tackle, but I also would not let him stop me from taking a Rashawn Slater or someone like that, or, if a Penei Sewell happens to fall. So, I do believe, Matt Parrott can be fine. I'm not 100% confident he'll be great, but I'm fine with him being a starter next year. I do want to see him out there. I want him to play. I don't want that pick to go to waste, but if the Giants look at Rashawn Slater as this very, very good prospect, a can't-miss type of guy, then yeah, I guess take Rashawn Slater. And you can even put Slater at guard. I'm not a big fan of that, but if you had to, you could. But if you got to put Matt Parrott on the bench, then I guess so be it. You know what I mean? It can't hurt to have too many tackles. You know what I mean? It cannot hurt you. We saw the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. They lost their 2 tackles, and Shaq Barrett and the rest of the pass rush for the Bucs had a field day. So it can't hurt to have tackle depth. Matt Parrott is not an all-pro player right now. He's still young. He needs to get better as a pass blocker. He was pretty good in run blocking, if I remember correctly, but he needs to just, be more consistent with the pass blocking. He has the tools. He has the length, the body type. I'm excited for him, but I also would not let him stop me from drafting a premier right tackle or offensive tackle in this draft in the first couple rounds. Next from Flymula Man, hopefully, 27. Who are your favorite players you think the Giants should draft with picks 3 to 5? I guess that's 3rd round through 5th round. Self-admittedly, I have not done all of my draft research. I think I'm 80 players in. I want to get to 200, which is time's against me right now. It's April 8th, so I got to get moving here. But I have 5 names I wrote down here of guys I've watched so far that are probably not high picks, but I was a big fan of them. Safety Ardarius Washington from TCU. He's small. He's 5'8" or so. I'm actually doing a video about him later. He's going to be included in the video. But he kind of reminds me of the Antoine Winfield Jr. of last year, because people with Antoine Winfield Jr. were well, he did have injury history or injury concerns, but people for Antoine Winfield Jr. were oh, he's too small. He won't be an NFL safety. Well, he balled out in this first year. He was great. I think Darius Washington can have a similar impact for a team. Now, I don't know if he'll be a slot corner or a free safety. I think he'd be a better free safety. His hips are phenomenal. He just has a really good understanding of the game. He could have better quickness, but he is pretty quick, honestly. So, I mean, yeah, I'm a big fan of Darius Washington. I think he could be like a really good cover 2 type safety and play the hashes and just do a really good job being like a center fielder, if you will. Linebacker Jabril Cox for LSU. I think he transferred. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if I'm thinking about the right guy now, but I'm pretty sure Cox transferred from North Dakota State. I hope I got the right guy I'm thinking of, but he's an athletic linebacker. I think would be a very nice fit next to Blake Martinez. Him and Martinez have different skill sets. I think he played the pass very well. I don't know how Jabril Cox would be versed to run. He's not the most physical guy, so yeah, that's a bit of a concern, but he's still very young. So I think Jabril Cox can grow into his body a bit more, but that's a fine pick for me. Running back Javonte Williams, I put him on Twitter the other day, and people did not like what I had to say about Saquon Barkley, but yeah, I'm a big fan of Javonte Williams out of North Carolina. Just has tremendous balance. He is really good through contact. He's a pretty good receiver. He's had some drops, but a pretty good receiver for the most part. Has enough breakaway speed. The PFF draft guide that I look at, they compared him to a bigger Aaron Jones, and I 100% see that. I see some Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well, so I think he'd be a really good running back for any team, honestly. I have defensive lineman / nose tackle Tyler Shelvin from LSU, and that's kind of like your Dalvin Tomlinson replacement right there. I mean, Shelvin's a big dude. I think at one point he was like 375 pounds. He got down to 350, so he needs to control his weight a bit. I think he has a bit of an eating problem, I heard somewhere, but he's going to be a very solid player. Can stuff the A-gaps and the B-gaps, be a very good run stopper. I think as like a 3rd or 4th round pick can be your Dalvin Tomlinson replacement. And wide receiver Cade Johnson from South Dakota State. So for Cade Johnson, he's only 5'11", 175, but he was really good at the Senior Bowl. He plays through contact. He gets off the line very easily. Had a good college production, and he's very good at contested catches. The downsides to him were he could be a slot-only guy, and he had small school competition, but I think Cade Johnson might have a chance to be a good one as well. So yeah, I do believe like once I do my research and hopefully get through at least 150 players. I don't know if I'll reach 200, but as I do more draft research in the coming week or two, I will have a video for like mid-round guys I would like the Giants to go after or potentially take a look at. So yeah, I will go over that in the future. Next question from Priceless Prince, and this should be a fun one. Do you think you could do a better job than Gettleman at GM? And if any team offered you a GM job, would you take it? How do you think you would do well? So one of those questions I can answer very easily. If a team offered me a job, while I think I'm way too young for that, I would take it because that's like a dream job for any sports fan, especially one that has a life that's very invested in sports like me. So yeah, I would take it if someone offered me the job. I just don't expect that to happen. But do I think I could do better than Dave Gettleman? I'm not going to say yes to that because I'm one of those people. I always talk about how I'm very realistic. I remember having having friends growing up when the Miami Heat were together with Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and LeBron James. And I had friends that were like, yo, I can coach the Miami Heat, man. It's probably so easy. Eric Spoelstra's job is too easy. And I hate it when people say that. I hate when people say stuff like that. I just think it's like arrogant and stupid. So I'm not one of those people that's going to be like, oh, I could do better than Dave Gettleman. But I will acknowledge at the same time, there are things that I pointed out in the past that I'm like, why is he doing this? And they end up not working out. That's why I get frustrated because I'm like, I feel like Dave Gettleman is better at scouting talent than a person like me, but Dave Gettleman's understanding of the modern NFL a couple years ago was awful. It just was not good. So it was not where it needed to be, but the Giants finally take analytics seriously. I feel like there's finally some positional value with the Giants, and they're starting to understand things more, and I feel like Joe Judge has brought in some good influence as well. So Gettleman's gotten better, thank God, but it's impossible to answer that question with a yes or no because there's a lot of variables. But I will say there's things Gettleman has done where I just did not like the moves at the time, and most of the time they don't end up working out. There are times I'm wrong and he's right. Like last year with Blake Martinez, I gave that signing a C. I wanted Corey Littleton more. He got that one right. I got that one wrong. So, but there are times where it's like, he signed Golden Tate to a big contract. I thought that was stupid. I thought he brought Eli Manning back 2 years too much. I thought, he was pretty much done in his career after 2017. Signing Nate Solder to the biggest left tackle contract wasn't really, I probably would not have done that if I was the GM. Drafting a running back second overall, wouldn't have done it. But when I think back to that 2018 draft, my guy was Baker Mayfield, but unfortunately he was gone with the first pick. So if it was the second pick, my quarterback two, as most of you know, was Josh Rosen. And I don't know if I would have traded back or taken Josh Rosen. So if I had taken Rosen back then yeah, I'd probably be out of a job too, or I might have gotten Kyler Murray next year. Who knows? It could have been like the Cardinals. But yeah, I just can't sit here and say I would have done better. I feel like that's too cocky and condescending, and I don't like playing that game. So I'm going to say no to that one. But do I think I would do well as a GM? So yeah, once again, I'm too young for this, but I do feel like my understanding of positional value and taking the right positions high in the draft would be a pretty good thing. I feel like, I wouldn't take these box safeties, these run-stopping inside linebackers, these run-stopping defensive tackles, these interior offensive linemen. I wouldn't spend a ton of money on those guys. I mean, of course, there are some outliers, like when you have a Jamal Adams, when you have like a tight end like a Kyle Pitts or a guy like a George Kittle. There are outliers where it's like, yeah, that guy is worth paying a lot of money to. But when you look at most tight ends or most inside linebackers, like what's the difference between a Blake Martinez and a Reggie Ragland? I mean, of course, Martinez is better, he's more durable, but if you get 16 games out of Reggie Ragland, is it going to be that much of a difference maker? Of course, Ragland's not as good of a player, but it's not like that much of a drop off where it's going to completely change your defense as compared to like, what if your wide receiver one is John Brown and your wide receiver one is Julio Jones? Like, that is a massive difference. So like, I feel like with certain positions, there's a big difference between the really good players and the average players. And for some positions, there's not as big of a difference. Like, Snacks Harrison, for instance, when he was the best run stopper in the league. Would it matter if you had Snacks Harrison making $10 million a year or Danny Shelton on a $2.5 million contract? Like, I love Snacks Harrison, very good player, but is it worth paying him that much money? Like back then in 2016 when they signed him, I didn't really understand positional value that much. I was like, oh, Snacks is great. But now looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, I probably would have rather have signed a defensive tackle for $2, $3, $4 million for 1 year and gone about it that way. So yeah, I think I would have had a pretty good understanding for positional value, which positions to pay a lot of money, which positions to take highly in the draft. In terms of scouting players, I have no idea how I would do. I don't really have like a whole spreadsheet of draft research. I mean, I do take notes on players, but I don't have like a whole bunch of grades and things like that. I have no idea how I would do. So it's an interesting question, and hopefully one day I get to find out, but it probably won't happen. But that was a fun question, so thank you for asking. Next question from Steven. What happens if Jones fails, Daniel Jones? Do we go for a veteran quarterback and make a Super Bowl run, or is this roster not good enough, and do we have to go through another rebuild? What would you do? So first off, I can't stand you pessimistic fans. No, I'm kidding. I probably would ask the same question if I was in your shoes. It's a realistic question. I'm kind of glad you asked this. I mean, I don't want to focus on Daniel Jones failing. I'd rather focus on him being good next year and being the franchise quarterback. But in this universe where he's not that good next year and the Giants may have to go a different direction, I think the roster, it's not good enough to win a Super Bowl right now. I'll tell you that. It's not. If the Giants had like Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson without his allegations going on as their quarterback, then yeah, they could probably win a Super Bowl here. But with Daniel Jones, who I still need to see a lot more from to be convinced on, I don't think we're Super Bowl ready right now. This team is probably playoff ready. I can definitely say that. But Super Bowl ready, I'm not sure about that. But if Jones doesn't play well this year, I don't see the Giants hitting the reset completely. I think they might go out and trade for a Kirk Cousins or someone like that, someone around that area. I feel like Kirk Cousins is a pretty decent trade candidate for next year. I think Minnesota may have tried to trade him this offseason or something. I forget. But something like that. I don't think the quarterback draft for next year is all that great right now. There's guys like Spencer Rattler, I believe, and maybe a couple others. But, sometimes guys come out of nowhere like Zach Wilson, Joe Burrow. So, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think they would go through an entire rebuild. There's some good players on this roster. But, yeah, if Jones fails, that would suck. That would definitely set this team back another. It depends if they go a young quarterback or veteran. Because if you bring in Kirk Cousins, you don't have to set this team back. It's just basically you would waste 1 year of 2021. And, let's say hypothetically, Kirk Cousins came in 2022, then, yeah, the Giants can go out there and compete for hopefully a Super Bowl. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully Jones is fine. We don't have to worry about this. I do think they would go the veteran quarterback route if it came down to this. Let's just hypothetically say Daniel Jones is awful, has a 15 to 20 touchdown interception ratio and fumbles the ball 15 times. Let's say he's awful. I think it's more likely to go with the veteran quarterback route than to go for drafting a young guy, because Here's the thing. I think the Giants defense is too good to be a bottom 5 team in the league. So if you're talking about that, the Giants might draft from like that 8 to 12 range again. And at that point, you're not going to get like one of the top quarterbacks in the class. So you'd probably have to trade up in the draft. So yeah, I think it'd make more sense to get a veteran quarterback. But yeah, hopefully we don't have to worry about this. But that was an interesting question. Next from Abok, World Nation, or Abook, probably Abok. I'll go with Abok. Would you be confident in our line if it was Andrew Thomas on left tackle, Will Hernandez at left guard, I almost said Nick center, Nick Gates at center, draft guard on second or third round, and Parrott on the right side? I think this could be a great young group at the minimum. I think they could be average. So, yeah, confidence not the right word for me with this one. I think it gives them a good amount of upside, and you did say they're young. Very true. So, yeah, they have upside because there's a lot of unknown with an offensive line like this. I feel like the oldest guy would probably be Will Hernandez. Like, Will Hernandez at that point is probably the oldest guy, like 26 or 25 years old. So, it's a young offensive line with a lot of guys that have to prove themselves. But I feel like I'd be crazy to sit here and say I would feel confident with an offensive line like that. I do think guard is very realistic in the second or third round because I'm not like, I did like the Shane Lemieux pick based on the value. I thought that was good value for a fifth round pick. But you can't tell me that after watching Shane Lemieux in his first year, you're confident he's a starting guard in this league. I hope he turns it around and has a good offseason and a good preseason and all that, but it's just hard to trust that right now. So, yeah, I mean, right now I feel like this would be an okay offensive line. It still scares the hell out of me, but at least there is upside. There's a lot of youth, so I guess I'm okay with it, but I'd prefer a better offensive line. I'll put it that way. But the fact that a lot of these guys are below 25 years old, it gives them room to grow, and maybe they are good. We'll find out. But yes, it's very risky, I'll put it that way, but definitely an offensive line that I would not have too much confidence in, unfortunately. Next from Matthew, Pitts, Waddle, and Sewell are on the board. Let's say Slater goes 5. Who are you taking? Could I have all of them? That would be my answer. I want to take all these guys. I mean, look, I honestly, I would love to have any one of these players. I think Waddle is probably the most realistic to be on the board still. I do believe that Sewell and Pitts will be gone, maybe even Slater. So by default, in reality, it might be Waddle. But according to this question, all 3 are available. So, man, this is tough. This is very tough. I think I'm going to rule Waddle out because of the positional value thing, and slot receivers are easier to replace than like an outside receiver per se. But I do love Jalen Waddle. That hurts. But Kyle Pitts, Penei Sewell, the Giants have Evan Engram, Kyle Rudolph. I think I'm going Penei Sewell there. I mean, I love Penei Sewell. He has an offensive tackle build. He's like 6'5", 330 pounds. He moves very well. I love his technique. He was dominating at 19 years old. Didn't play last year, of course. But I love Penei Sewell. Like, he's my favorite offensive tackle. I know there's a lot of Rashawn Slater people out there. Penei Sewell's my favorite guy. And if you had to put him at right tackle, then fine. If you had to bench Matt Parrott for this move, then fine. But I would love that Penei Sewell. But honestly, if they took any one of these guys, I would be thrilled. I think in a dream scenario, you trade back 2 spots, get a couple extra picks, and take the one guy left out of these 3 maybe. But yeah, if I had to pick between one of these guys, I'm probably taking Sewell ever so slightly over Kyle Pitts in this scenario. All right, so we got a couple more that were comments on my last video. Who do you personally want the Giants to draft at 11? Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson, preferably. But if I'm being realistic, I'm going to say if Penei Sewell falls, would love to have him. If Kyle Pitts falls, would love to have him. But guys that I think will be there, I do like Jalen Waddle a lot. I like him more than Devontae Smith. I have said that before. Could be wrong, but I do like him more a bit. Rashawn Slater, would love to have him. Who else? I'm looking at my list right now. I feel like I do love Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I don't know if I love him at 11. I might have to trade back for that one. But, yeah, I mean, I can definitely go for Slater or Jalen Waddle. I feel like those are the 2 guys I would love to have. So it's pretty much consensus with most Giants fans. I don't really have, like, a opinion that's too out there for who I want. But there are some guys I like more than other people. Like, if we traded back and took Azeez Ojulari, I'd be okay with that. There's a lot of things. Once again, they can't really screw this up. There are certain players, if they took them at 11, I would not be a big fan of. Like, I'm not the biggest Jason Oweh guy. Who else is around here? Like, Caleb Farley's injury history is scary. Who else? I don't know. That's pretty much it in that area. Once again, Christian Barmore. I think he's a good player. Just, I'm done with the defensive lineman. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. So, yeah, it really doesn't matter. Just don't pick any of those guys, and I'd be okay with it, honestly. And next question, and this is the most important one probably. Do you see us making the playoffs next season? So it definitely helps that there's 3 wild card teams and there's an extra game now, and we have a tough opponent with the Dolphins in that game, so I probably did not favor the Giants in any way. But I think they'll be right on the cusp of the playoffs, and I will say they better make the playoffs next year because the expectations and the bar has been raised because of the free agents they brought in. So, yes, they better make the playoffs, but I do think realistically, and you guys know, I'm very honest about the Giants. Like, I have not had them making the playoffs since I've been content creating. I had them at 8-8, then 7-9, and then 6-10. So I have not had them having a winning record. Well, I guess a 500 record one year in 2018, but I have not had them making the playoffs since I've been doing this. And I'm still on the fence, but I will say this is the most optimistic I have felt in the past 4 seasons about this team. And there is an extra wild card spot. So I think it's very realistic. The NFC, for the most part, there are some tough teams here, of course, but there's some bad teams too. So I think it's possible. The Giants play in the worst division in football. It definitely helps, but I do think a team like Dallas will get better. Washington, I don't know what to expect from Ryan Fitzpatrick, but they have a very good defense. And the Eagles should be in rebuild mode. We'll find out what Jalen Hurts is, but yeah, I'm not too worried about them. But yeah, the Giants should make the playoffs. They're right there. I mean, they're basically right on that cusp of like wild card team. I don't think they'll win the East. I still think Washington or Dallas is probably a bit better, but wild card, very realistic. I think the Giants can make it, and hopefully they do. But once again, thank you guys who asked the questions. I answered this a few days after, so I'm sorry about that. But hey, we got it out way before the draft, so that's all that matters. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I have a lot of videos coming out about the draft coming up, a couple mock drafts coming up, mid-round guys I like, and any other suggestions you guys have for videos, leave them in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys next time.